Alright, hello everyone. Today we're going to be jumping into creating that abstract GameState class that we talked about that our GameState is going to be using. As you see, we already got a lot of errors in here. That's because we haven't really instantiated our GameState class. We haven't built anything. So that's kind of what we're going to be continuing on to cover. So the goal for this video is to get this class filled out and get our splash screen set up. Um, I won't do anything fancy in that yet, but once I get the splash screen set up, the next video will kind of be geared towards how you can switch from state to state. I'm also thought about adding a little bit more functionality in the set state, just because, like, let's say if you're playing the game and you don't necessarily want an overlay kind of pause screen, you could have a pause state, and with that you could just pop the state in and then pop it out when you're done with it, which kind of is nice functionality. Allows you to quickly jump in and jump out of a menu state that you might want. But as I mentioned in the previous video, do be thoughtful how you treat those states. Remove the ones you don't need and remove any that definitely don't need to stick around for longer than, like if you're playing the game, keep the game one, but if you're done with playing the game part and you're just going back to a menu, then you got to destroy that, the game one, just dispose of it. So for now, just to start here, let's jump into that game state class. And first thing first, we're going to want to provide the references. So these are just going to be references. We'll make those protected, game state manager GSM, and protected application app. There's that and that imported. Okay, and then we're also going to want to create references to the sprite batch that's in our application class here and the camera. Sprite batch, and then the orthographic camera, it's going to be camera. Okay, so we have all those references now. And so we made it abstract to, as I mentioned before, get that polymorphism project set up, so we'll be able to create a lot of game states and work with them as if they're all similar. As you see, there's these calls to just the game state type, and we get the dispose, the resize, the update, the render, and we're going to kind of throw those all in here. So, but first, we're going to want to create the constructor for a game state, and that is going to take a game state manager GSM. So this dot GSM equals GSM, creating that waterfall effect again. You'll see this dot app kind of does that same thing. And then the app, this dot app equals GSM dot application. And then the batch. This is one thing that we didn't do in the previous video, but we're going to want to get the sprite batch from the application along with the camera. Goes app.get camera. So we'll go over to our main application class here. This should be orthographic camera, get camera, and that'll return camera. And then public sprite batch, get batch, return batch. Okay, those are some easy methods that we'll throw in here at the bottom. Again, we'll be moving all this code soon, so don't worry about that too much. Oh, did I spell that wrong? Get sprite batch. Oh, I just called it get batch. So there's that. Okay, so there's our default constructor there for a game state. We'll use those when we create our game states, and so we're going to have 3 abstract methods and 1 that we can override if we need to. The one that is just going to be pre-made for us is going to be the resize method. And that's mostly because you don't do too much with this. If you want to change the functionality of how it resizes, you can easily do that by overriding this method in the game state you're working with. So all that really does is the same thing we had before, set to ortho, false, width, height, and so from here we'll kind of track this back. So the resize gets called from the game state manager, which looks at the current state that's on top of the stack, and it sends it the width and height. And from our application, if we go to the resize here, you'll see we send it the width modified to match the scale we want, and the height modified to match the scale we want. And as you see, it kind of flows down to be this line here, and it sends it down all the way to our game states, which is nice. That's kind of what we're looking for. So we can get rid of that now. We're done with our resize method. So now we can move towards the abstract methods, which are pretty easy to just throw together. So we got our update, float, delta, public, abstract, void, render, public, abstract, void, dispose. Okay, and that's it. That's all we need for a game state. It's those 4 methods that we all call in here, and as you saw, all those just went away. So we're pretty much done with making our game state, which is great. So if you look here, simple functionality, you just have to create these methods for each game state. This one's provided for you. You can override it if you want, and then you can just call the default constructor to make sure the references are set properly to be able to use in your game state, such as the batch and the camera, which is kind of important because it's always nice to have a reference to the top level code that it's being wrapped around. So let's get our first state set up. That's going to be our splash screen, so we'll just call that splash state. That's going to extend our GameState class. We can get rid of this real quick, blow that out, and if you hold Alt and hit enter, it'll give you an implement methods, and that's an IntelliJ. Otherwise, in Eclipse, you can just like mouse over and implement missing methods. And so you'll see the 3 methods we're required to implement are there, and just hit OK. And you'll also need to make sure to create your constructor for your splash state, and that is going to require the game state manager GSM, and it'll call the super class there. And that's just really all I'm going off of here is just following what we set up here with the protected constructor where it requires the game state manager. So with that, we have a very simple state setup. There's really nothing going on here just yet. But we will throw some stuff in here soon. So if we go back, I don't really want to throw this code in yet just because I want you guys to see how it all works. So game state manager, we need to go back here and kind of get things going with determining which state we return. So this switch body is going to contain those enumerations that we created up here. And so you'll have like splash, main menu, pause menu, gameplay, high score list, you know, all the states that can be instantiated. So return new splash state this. We don't need the break anymore, and that is just going to return null because we don't have a main menu yet. Let's see. So yeah, that should be it. So we'll kind of take some of this stuff here, just because we do want that, just maybe to color it real quick. the imports of the OpenGL code. Let's just set the screen to we'll just set it to white for now. We don't have anything to dispose. We don't have anything to update. And yeah, I think we can actually run it now. It should work just fine. So what we should get is our... Oh, okay, I must have forgot something. Okay, let's see what that was. Peak, pop, set state. I think that's supposed to go... Oh, I should probably correct that in the previous video. Let's try running it now. Oh wait, that wouldn't work either. There would be no state. Okay, let's just get rid of that. So if states.size is greater than or equal to 1, okay, we'll just do that. Okay, perfect. So this is just our basic splash state. Nothing too fancy going on right now, just the white background, and we know that's our state because if I change this to 0, then we should get that different colored background. There we go, the cayenne. And there we are, just our first game state, nothing too fancy. And I think in the next video I'm actually going to move this code into a state and we'll probably get the splash state set up. So I think that's actually all I want to do in this video, is to get our GameState class set up and get a basic state initialized. So with that, I'll see you in the next video, and from there we'll just move on to the more advanced topics.